So let's move to our next activity, which we've done yesterday. And I'm going to ask Dr. Smith to come up and join me. And we're going to review the post-test results. And I don't think we have any other questions left over from yesterday. But if you really have a burning, yearning question from yesterday, type it in so that we have some time here allotted to do some commenting and questioning, okay? And I'll stay up here. Yes.
So I can get in front of this mic.
Yeah. I'm going to take my little cheat sheet. All right.
We did a little bit better on the number of people that responded to our post-test. We got up to 57.
Good.
We think our peak attendance yesterday was something like 160.
Yeah.
And, you know, people, more than 200 of you registered, so people probably were coming in and out. Among the 57, Joan, out of 17 questions, the average number of questions answered correctly was 13.23.
Okay.
And the median was 13.
Ah.
So people are sort of getting the message of what we're trying to
Indeed.
teach.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's good.
There was some interesting patterns of questions that people didn't sort of get. Okay. Let's start with a geography question. In which of the states is the life expectancy for sickle cell disease worse than average? And it's not the state that is fashionable to think about. You would think it'd be something in the southeast, maybe on the east coast, Mississippi,
Alabama.
right? It's California. And people did not get that right.
Yeah.
A lot of you did not get that right. Here's another one. Wasn't a trick question.
No.
But I think people were thinking, the government is not going to say anything about racism, are they? And the government said something about racism with relation to sickle cell disease. People did not pick that the only incorrect answer, or the only correct answer in the National Academy of Sciences and Engineering report, the blueprint, was about racism. They did indeed declare that racism was one of the causes for the problems that we have with sickle cell disease today. And people didn't think that they did that.
Yeah, interesting.
Instead, they thought that the report, the most common answer was that the report told you what drugs to prescribe. It did not do that.
Didn't mention it, I don't think, really.
No mention of which drugs to prescribe.
I haven't read the whole report, but I have perused a good part of it.
Yeah, you will not see anything about specific drug prescription
Excellent
guidelines.
Resource, though.
Excellent resource, but
excellent resource.
It's not a treatment guideline.
No.
This is a policy report
It's
meant to improve social determinants of care, of health, meant to have government agencies and other agencies cooperate to make health care more accessible and more empathetic for patients with sickle cell disease.
And it does a great job of acknowledging some information that most of you and us, we kind of know that.
Yeah.
But it's nice to have it in an official report with organizations that are like, yes.
Yeah. It taps organizations to go fix the problem.
Right.
Which is neat. It's actually calling out itself.
It's a call to action.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, it's a blueprint.
So if you've not read that report, you can get it online, you can read it online, you can actually order the book. I mean, I would highly suggest if you're in this field, if you haven't already, which I feel many of you have, but there might be some of you that have not, I would say go for it because it's a wonderful resource for what's going on in sickle cell in America.
All right. Here's the next area where people got tripped up. It was mental health. We asked a couple of questions. The first one was, what are some somatic symptoms of mental health that can impact physical pain for patients with sickle cell disease. And many of you picked bone injury, nausea and vomiting. And one of the issues that we know about are sleep issues. What we were going for was headaches and muscle aches.
Yeah.
Now, do patients with sickle cell disease have sleep issues? Yes.
Absolutely.
Can stress impact sleep?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
But other things can impact sleep.
Yeah.
Sleep disordered breathing, sleep apnea,
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera.
All kinds. Work.
Yeah, yeah. And then this one, which tripped me up, and I don't know that I have the logic behind this one.
Okay.
What would you say if people asked you about social interaction and use of opioids?
Yeah.
Would you say that social interaction would decrease the use
serious?
of opioids, or would you say that social interaction could increase? People were split about that. And the answer that this key tells me is increase. So there's that negative
Yeah.
social interaction.
Good question.
I don't know how this works.
Right.
So I got to learn
Yeah.
a little bit more. And Rachel Walls was the one presenting
Right.
that. So Rachel, if you're listening,
Yeah.
type in the mechanism.
Right.
So we understand that. We do have measures of social interactions, both negative and
And
positive.
positive. Right.
So maybe the point is that negative social interactions,
Yeah.
things like stereotyping
Typing,
or stigmatizing,
Microaggression, those things we talked about, and
maybe those things can actually increase somebody's use of opioids, whereas the positive interactions might actually decrease.
Can I just say that we don't have the market on pre and post test, okay? We are learning as we go, and so we've been developing this test bank over a few years now. Yeah. And so we love your input. So if you even want to have comment or input, we will go back and we look at every question at the end of the conference and really evaluate, what are we trying to get at? Why did the audience respond this way? And so we have, this is actually one of the newer questions.
It is.
So that's something that this whole conference has been really fun to watch. But a lot of conferences don't attempt to truly evaluate content through pre and post test.
Yeah.
You all know, you go to conferences and you get there and you get an evaluation, you say, oh, I loved it, the lunch was great, or, but we're truly trying to evaluate the effectiveness of this conference through some content evaluation. So we are not experts on that, and so please, give us input, we need it. I'm sorry, but
that's perfect.
We hadn't really explained that to you guys, so.
Now, that was the only area where people had, very different answers than the ones we were going for. But I've got a couple of other things I'd like to mention.
Have it.
I thought the end of the day, we got a little bit of a surprise from Dr. Ogunchole. If you stayed until that last talk, and you heard the angst out there, especially among parents, about their children doing sports.
Yeah.
That was a little bit of a surprise for me.
Really? Okay.
That there's that much concern and desire for people to do sports.
Right. We have a question.
So I think we need to go back and talk about that a little bit more. A little bit of a background. The NCAA published a policy about sports and sickle cell trait.
Trait, right.
Not sickle cell disease.
Right.
And that policy said it is safe for athletes with sickle cell trait to play competitive sports. As long as safe practices like plenty of
Hydration.
and
Rest
frequent
periods.
rests. And things like that are followed for all athletes. This was a culture changer. Because up until then, it was kind of a don't ask, don't tell. And the coach would beat those players up and run them until they were ragged. And if one dropped dead, like they did here in Richmond at Virginia Union University,
it became
people
news.
went, somebody dropped dead. And the news would go out that they had sickle cell trait, and somebody inevitably would say they had sickle cell disease. All right, so that's one thing. The NCAA said, no. This is sickle cell trait we're talking about. We're not giving a blanket authorization for people with sickle cell disease. We are giving an authorization for people with sickle cell trait. And we're saying, if you're going to do it, you'd better hydrate all of your players and give them frequent breaks. I won't go into the politics of that because there's some politics around it. People's money, you're messing with people's pocketbooks. Some of these people go on and play pro ball. The lawyers got involved for the colleges. It was a big deal. All right. So now we're asking, can somebody with sickle cell disease safely play ball? You can imagine how tough that's going to be. And we were very conservative yesterday. We did not tell you that your child can play competitive sports. So I think we're going to stick to that until we know better. But I think the parents out there would love for their children to be able to do it. And that's why we had the parent who said, well, what if they're on hydroxyurea and on Oxbryta and their hemoglobin is 11? Will you let them play then? Not so sure. Yeah. And then people went ahead and played sports, as I told you that story. People went ahead and played sports anyway, even though they were told not to. And I'm kind of surprised that the high school allowed that.
Yeah, me too.
All right, Rachel wrote the answer to my question. Let's see if I can read it.
Oh, yeah, because I can't.
Rachel says, social anxiety for all of the issues you both just mentioned. Generally, people use drugs recreationally more in social settings as a means of bonding and connection. Whoa.
Yeah.
So like social drinking, social smoking, and social injecting.
Yeah.
I don't think I've participated in the latter. I won't tell you about the other two. All right. And then somebody else asked a question. We'll do that one very quickly. What was the next one? The next question?
There was a question, about, we'll get it in just a sec. Well, this does bring up, Dr. Smith, a good point in that we need some researchers like Dr. Joy.
We do.
Because she kept mentioning they have a fairly small study and limited numbers of participants. So if any of you out there are researchers or are part of a research team, I go, hey, this is an area we need some real research on.
This is clearly cutting edge.
And because we have enough people with even sickle cell that are now moving into adulthood and they want to participate in all these fun things like everybody else.
They do.
But we don't have clear guidelines as to how to do that. So, all right, we did have a question.
There was a question about vegan or vegetarian diets. And I think what Dr. Ogunchale said, as well as what Micah said, was prudent. A prudent diet. We're not specifying vegan or vegetarian as good or bad. We are saying it's allowed, but you have to have a prudent diet. And we emphasize fluids. We emphasized protein intake and all those sorts of things. So, you can pick your formula for how to get there. There's more than one formula. There's the plate where you look at the proportion of the plate, and then there's the pyramid. And they've changed the pyramid every 10 years. So pick one of those and go by that.
And even that, I think it was in Micah's talk, Ms. Furless, the diet part, just because they're sickle cell doesn't mean they don't or do have like hypertension.
That's right.
And heart disease.
Yeah.
And so she talked about some of the screenings that should be done, et cetera, but that kind of goes along with healthy diet, healthy eating, plant-based diets, which we all should be doing.
Yeah.
So I think at this point it's the prudent, healthy diet.
Yeah.
But don't forget, they can have high cholesterol and high blood pressure.
Absolutely.
I
have diabetics in my clinic.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I have people obviously with kidney disease in my clinic.
Yeah, kidney, right.
Yep.
So.
All right.
All right.
I think that's it for the review. We're out of time, but we're going to hand it over to you for today's content. Hope you got a lot out of yesterday.
I know. Thank you. All right. Next, we're going to move into a very different kind of form. Well, we did this yesterday, but we're going to do another case study. And this is where the techie team's got to help me here. See, I have to take off my glasses so that I can see what I'm supposed to be doing. Oh, shoot. Where'd it go? All right. I got lost. All right. My cheat sheet's not up there. All right, we're going to break you up into breakout rooms like yesterday. There is the key story, which is available to you, and there's 9 questions. We're going to break out into 9 groups. Please, in your group, can you quickly or somebody volunteer to be the moderator, not necessarily the moderator, but the reporter, I guess we should call them, somebody that will report back for your question. And for instance, if you're in group 1, you will look at question 1 and all down to 9. We're going to give you 10 minutes, so please interact with each other, talk about your question, and if you want to talk more about the key story, you're welcome to, but please focus first on your question. We're going to come back and go through each question and share, with the idea that as we talk about those 9 questions, we will then review what we already know. Now, if we were doing a entry-level, if we had a group of community health workers that we were going to train to work in our clinic, we would do a much more detailed discussion about culture and its role in health delivery, okay? Because most people, unless they've gone to some kind of schooling where, like a social worker or a nurse or doctor, whatever, we've had courses in sociology and we've talked about all these things. A person that may not have that background would not know, but in looking at who's out there, all of you folks have been in this world and you have been very involved. So we want to take some of that knowledge that you already have and apply it to Keith's story.